So I have to say that my faith story began in a juvenile detention center. I was always getting into trouble, and just to backtrack a little bit, I grew up in a violent home. My dad was violent. A lot of different violence was going on in my house and also in my neighborhood. And it's kind of like I developed this thing inside of me that like I just couldn't control. You know, it was like an uncontrollable rage or anger or whatever, which in turn led me to a lot of trouble. So I ended up in the juvenile detention center, and same thing there. I got into a lot of trouble, a lot of difficulties, a lot of fights, until eventually I was locked down in that institution as well. And they called it admin say, which is administrative segregation, where you're not allowed to interact with the population. And then one night, some guy on 12 to 8 shift would come in. His name was Daryl Williams. And he came in and he would unlock my door and let me out. And he would read the word to me, but I didn't want to listen to the word. I wasn't like I was raised Catholic, but I just wasn't in like to God or any of that stuff. You know, I kind of like threw that stuff to the side. And just something happened to me. He started to read, and I didn't want to listen to it, but I did want to get out of the cell. So he started to preach to me, and he put Jesus in the form of like I'll just say in a way that I can understand. And stuff started to happen to me automatically. And I was about 14 or 15 at this time. And I just stopped cursing. I stopped being violent. I ended up being the unit leader. Just something special happened to me where I was content and happy with where I was. And I've never, ever, not once forgotten that feeling. And I started to get involved in drugs and using drugs and abusing drugs. And I guess there was like nothing in me. There wasn't a shut-off switch, or even though we had the warnings in school and people told us don't do this and this isn't good, I just didn't hear it. And the only way I can contribute that to is like my spirit was just asleep at this point in my life. You know, I had turned my back on Jesus and whatever was going on because I had chalked it up to fake, you know, and phony. Over time and periods of years, I guess I did that over and over again. I just stole, and just every time that thing inside of me that said, don't do that, or, you know, that fundamental idea of God that I had even as a child was telling me what and what not to do, I didn't listen. So eventually it just got a little more quiet, and I got better at pushing it to the side and not listening. So when drugs came around and alcohol and things of that nature, it was easy for me to say yes because I didn't have anything in me saying no anymore. And if I did, it wasn't as loud, so it was easily just pushed to the side as whatever. I don't know what you're talking about. That's just a different you, or you must be crazy hearing voices or whatever. So as I got more involved with drugs, I got into more crime, as you know. So I started to get into a lot of different violent crimes and just selling drugs, abusing drugs, and committing a lot of acts of violence until I ended back up in prison. I'm in prison for a long, extended period of time, usually years at a time. And as I was in there, I remember I got 5 years, and I was doing about 5.5 years on my from 18 to 24. And this is like not far after I got out of the juvenile detention center and pushed everything to the side, you know, and deemed it fake or whatever. So I got back in prison, and I'm there, and I'm there for an extended period of time, like I said, and I remember just feeling that same thing inside of me, that same uncontrollable, like I would do things, and the God truth is, like I felt like I didn't have control over myself after I got upset or angry. It's like I lost all control. It's like I was on like autopilot. And I would do stuff, so I did the same thing in prison. And I remember going to this guy who was a Christian that I knew, and I remember feeling it, so I always chased that feeling again, but just couldn't get it, you know? And I remember going back to him, and I said, his name was James, and I said, James, man, I need some help. And I went to his cell. And he was like, what do you need help with? And I was like, I got demons inside of me and I need help. And that's just what my belief was at the time. And he said, all right, I'll get with you later. And he kind of like pushed me to the side. So I ended up, a guy was behind me who was Muslim. And he was like, Matt, when you want some help with that, I can help you. And I was desperate. And I went to him and I went for help. And I was like just open to the idea of God. I wasn't kind of privy to what God was or how it was or what I had felt before. I was just desperate to feel what I felt before and that inner change. I wanted to change on the inside. So I did that, and I practiced that. And I practiced Islam for years. And I just didn't feel that same thing that I felt as I did with Jesus, you know? And I'm just being honest when I say that. And I got out of prison, same thing, got into a lot of trouble, back into drugs, doing the same thing that I did. I tried to practice as I did then. Nothing had worked for me. And then I ended up going back to the streets again. So I ended up in the streets, lots of drugs and rehabs and detoxes and facilities. I've tried absolutely everything to try to change. I tried to change the outside. I tried to be successful. I tried money. I tried different women. I tried to move away, to stop using drugs and drinking alcohol. I tried like therapy, counseling, detoxes, rehabs. I tried absolutely everything, medicines, you name it, and I've tried those. I even did try to have a kid to stop, you know, and nothing was powerful enough. And they tell us in like different programs that no human power can relieve me of that. And I found that to be true today. This is how it started with God for me. It actually happened through recovery. And he told me to read the doctor's opinion. He started to read it with me, and it said, although the doctor gives all that is in him, it's often not enough. And if the doctor is being honest with themselves, they must sometimes feel their own inadequacy. And it just struck me because I remember ODing, waking up, begging for help. God, please help me. Like, doctor, help me, please. Human powers, asking human powers, please, doctor, help me, you know, or whatever. And they just shook their head. They get your vitals stable when you OD, and they send you home. That's the solution that they have. So while I was in this rehab and I'm doing this reading with this man, they took us to church. And I wasn't in the church. I didn't want to do the church thing, but I did want to get out of the rehab. So I went. And they took us to a church called Christ Fellowship in West Palm Beach, Florida. And there was a man up there, Pastor Daniel. And I'll never forget it. He gave, his sermon was on counterfeit. That's what his sermon was on. And at this time, like all my friends were dead, you know. My life was in shambles. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And he started to talk to me. There's thousands of people in this room, and I got Crystal next to me, and I'm just holding her hand. And I knew he was talking to me. Like the whole room could have disappeared, but he told my story. He was talking to me, and I knew it was God speaking through him to me. And I started to cry, kind of like I am now. And Crystal said, "What?" And I just felt this, man, grace and mercy, you know. Like I just remember thinking about my friends and Eddie and like Aaron and Chan and like all the people that I had lost, and I was just like, how am I here? Like, why am I here and they're not? Like, they were much better people than I was. How is it that I'm here and they're not? So, and not like a self-pity, I just lost my friends, just like, you know, like a grace, like I knew I didn't deserve what he had given me. And I was just so grateful at that moment. And I remember looking around at the back of me. And at that point, I had studied religions and multiple religions, not just Islam and science and stuff like that, and like trying to find my way and couldn't. But this time, like I remember, and so it kind of like distorted my belief up in what happened to me in that juvenile detention center with Jesus. So I looked back, and I seen all these people with their hands in the air, and they're praising God, and they're just like happy. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't even care if they're wrong. course, because I wasn't willing to admit that they were right yet. But I just said, I don't even care if they're wrong. I just want to believe how they believe. And it's not just a belief, but a relationship with God. And as time went by and I built this relationship with God, I always run into those people, and my word to them is, God said, my thinking and your thinking is not alike, nor are my ways your ways. And I have an experience with that. I was in a meeting, and we were setting up the chairs, and I set the chairs up every night in this meeting, 7 o'clock on Monday nights. And I went in there, and I would go and I would grab my coffee, and I would spill it all the time, and Crystal would yell, again, and I would just be like, shut up, and all that stuff. And I grabbed my coffee and I set it on the floor. And as I set my coffee on the floor this particular night, there was one single ant walking by himself. So I go and I try to get the ant on my fingers, right, and he's doing like NFL running back moves, trying to juke me out, And I get a piece of paper, and I get the ant with my finger and a piece of paper onto the paper, and I take him outside. On my way outside, I'm thinking, I wonder what the ant is thinking. What would the ant be saying right now? And the ant is probably a little upset, Some big thing, I don't know, what he's doing, but he just took me out. Now I don't know where I'm at. I'm just trying to search for some food from my queen, and feed the family. And this big dumb thing just comes and scoops me up and takes me outside. Now he puts me in the grass. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm at, right? Lost, broken, and hopeless, right? Kind of like I was. But the ant's thinking and my thinking are not alike. He has no clue that I got him on that piece of paper and took him outside because 100 people were about to walk into that room and someone was about to trample him. So, nor are his ways my ways, And I started to think about that, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of like, if the ant and my thinking aren't alike, neither. So when we go through all these hardships and tough things that happen in our lives, like people passing away or losing jobs, even from the mildest thing to the largest thing, and we wonder, like, why God, why would you do this? Why would you do this? And I just know today that his ways are much better than my ways. I might never know why he did this or why he's doing it. It might not even be for me. Rather it's losing someone or not, or whatever the case happens, whatever the case may be. I know that God's thinking and my thinking, his thinking to my thinking is infinitely greater than my thinking is to the ant, So his ways are much better than my ways, especially when it doesn't look like it. When I'm in that broken, hopeless, going through those tough times, they are the most powerful times that have ever impacted my life, where I'm able to internally give up everything, So today, my walk is like just walking with Jesus, man. I got a shirt on, and this is my favorite shirt. Jesus is my superhero, and he is, he is. He is absolutely changed, and I have that feeling today back, but now it's not in prison, it's on the outside, I spend my life in service to other people. I just want to carry God's message into the world.